Thuzy Productions owner, operator, CEO Jake Fine here. We're enthusiastic about telling stories and helping you tell yours. That's why we make these videos. So if you haven't already, subscribe, like the video, share with a friend, and join the Thuzy movement. A lot of content coming, new documentaries coming, vlogs coming. Just, you don't want to miss out on this. Let's get into the clip.
Sometimes you just go, I was working in the editing room on the World War II film. It was like 2005 or 2006, and I was having a nightmare about the Battle of Peleliu, which is a horrible Pacific island. We didn't need to fight it. We could have left the Japanese garrison there alone, and they would have just atrophied of their own isolation. And instead, we went there, and just, it was a meat grinder on both sides. One soldier said it was like 2 scorpions in a bottle. It was horrible, and the footage is terrible, and I had a nightmare about it, and I woke up and said, you know, we have to do Vietnam, we have to do Vietnam, and we began working on that, figuring out how we would do it, figuring out how you'd get them, who would fund it, you know, all of those things, the exigencies of producing it. So most of all, it has to fit this thing. Who are we? We want to ask that question, sound it. And it comes in really small and very beautiful things like Horatio's Drive, which is a funny film about the first cross-country automobile trip. Americans love their cars and they like to be first at everything. So how come no one knew what the first automobile trip was? Nobody. It was mentions in these turgid books about the automobile. Nobody cared about it, and we suddenly unearthed all of this stuff. How do you choose Elizabeth Cady Stanton, you know, to subject? So it's really just a sense that right now, that will give you that kind of access. And as you see, I'm rather greedy for that kind of stimulation and creation, and have got 5 or 6 films on, and those are just the mainline films. The others that we're doing, mentoring other folks and creating other projects, a justice initiative, a science initiative, that are keeping us really, really busy.
Yes, ma'am.
Ken Burns' most recent documentary is a big series on Netflix about the Vietnam War. I haven't watched it all yet. I've watched a couple episodes. I had a phase last year where I was super into like World War II documentaries, so I checked that out a little bit. I think I got sidetracked by another World War II documentary though, so I'll have to get back to that. But Ken Burns is obviously known for his distinct style, where he does the Ken Burns effect, where he pans in on photos. I talked about this last week in one of my other videos about Ken Burns. But right here you have him talking about how he was making another documentary about some other war, and he had a nightmare about the Vietnam War, and he came back to his office the next day and basically said, we got to make this documentary about the Vietnam War. And lo and behold, it ended up on Netflix. It was a huge deal. I remember my dad was watching it. Like, that's how big of a deal that documentary was. His documentaries have gotten so much coverage and viewership. He's very well known in the space, and he's done a lot in terms of kind of bringing history to the forefront of our culture. So he's definitely like one of the top documentarians in the game. Documentarians. He's definitely one of the top documentarians in the game. I think what he said here was really interesting about, you know, conceiving the idea for the Vietnam War from a nightmare that he had. I think as creatives, especially documentary filmmakers, ideas are kind of all over the place, and it can kind of be like overwhelming. I know I've had points in time where every day I have a new idea for a different documentary that I want to do, and I almost get stuck because I have this like excess amount of options, right? But it's a blessing and a curse. You kind of just have to pick something, but sometimes these things come to us and sometimes we have to search for them. And I think the main takeaway here is just, if you feel something strongly pulling you towards it, like Ken Burns did with this nightmare he had, you got to go with it and you got to dive into it, because that's sometimes when the best work is created. And when I was filming my first documentary, it was literally like I was filming like footage for some other project I was doing, and I got this wave of inspiration just doing the footage, because I was like, oh, this looks like documentary footage. I'm going to take this and run with it. And there you go. Lo and behold, I make my first whole documentary. I was able to sell out a theater of 290 seats and, you know, make some money on it and get a bunch of views on YouTube. And that documentary actually catapulted me to the documentary I'm doing now, which is a mixed martial arts documentary with some professional athletes out of New York City who are mixed martial arts fighters. And we just filmed that 2 weeks ago, and that's obviously the next big initiative for me. But the point is, I think these topics shouldn't be overthought, that we should kind of go with our gut, go with them, and on the other end of that, great things can happen. For Ken Burns, it was a Netflix deal. For me, it was getting the opportunity to make this film about professional athletes and get those kind of connections. And you just kind of go with that, and you go with your gut, and you do it, and you do a great job, and great things happen. So that's what I'm doing with my documentary right now here at Thuzy. We're trying to tell amazing stories. That's what we're enthusiastic about telling stories. So yeah, make sure you join the movement, you like and subscribe and share with a friend who might be interested. Look out for more videos. We're flooding it every week. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.